You've probably been there before when you're speaking your foreign language and you find yourself hesitating, or you find your mind goes blank, even though you know exactly what you want to say. And being a human and engaging in such a vulnerable process, such as trying to express yourself in a foreign language and all the uncertainty that comes with it, it is so understandable why you do this in the first place. And it's not that you're a bad language learner or that you're bad at speaking. Instead, I want us to think about how we relate to the discomfort that naturally comes with doing something vulnerable in our language. And I want to also share with you an exercise that I love doing with some of my one-on-one clients who have also had their own anxieties around speaking, but have also found their way towards confidence and actually speaking in their language without so much anxiety holding them back. It's also a common misconception that most language learners, I would say, believe that confidence comes after fluency. And it's understandable why we think that, because we see so many people showing us their language skills and they project, I don't know, when I think about confidence, a very relaxed disposition a bit and being very calm in how they express themselves. Like, no anxiety. If I were inside their heads, then all of their thoughts would be just seamlessly flowing together and really being connected to what they are saying, right? I would say that that's my definition about what I think of when I see a confident speaker who also speaks fluently. But there are also plenty of speakers that, even though they aren't fluent, they are very confident. And sometimes they're so confident that they can trick us into actually thinking that they're fluent B2, C1, when they're actually more of A2, B1-ish, right? It's all how you not only present yourself, but even more so, as I said before, how you relate to your discomfort that inevitably is a factor inside the language learning process. No one is going to be able to avoid it, get around it. It is practically built into what this hard thing you are doing is. And that's not a bad thing, actually. I want to show you this fear hierarchy that is a method from the Mindful Fluency Method that really helps you to use what you think is a weakness, such as your anxiety, and relate to it in a different way so that it becomes your strength and actually gets you to speaking confidently a bit faster. What we do is we reduce your fear and anxiety gradually while also being able to dial up your confidence at the same time. We start from the very top and then we go to the bottom. What I mean by this is we start with, for example, your goal for this year that you want to accomplish by the end. Then we break it down even more and we think about what milestones do I need to hit in order to reach this goal. Then after you have the milestones, you think about what skills do I need to build or improve to help me accomplish those milestones that then get me to the goal? And then we break it down even further and ask, okay, what activities or what strategies, what resources do I need in order to help me improve those skills, which then again has a butterfly effect on everything else in our little pyramid here. And after that, we organize those activities, strategies, any sort of resources, right, at the bottom of our pyramid into the least anxiety inducing to most anxiety inducing. So ideally what you start with at the base of your ladder when you're organizing these activities are something or is something that does not cause you really any anxiety at all. And then of course we're all going to know what that most anxiety driven activity is, because most likely it's most relevant with how you are going to achieve your goal by the end of the year, right? So having this as an example, I'm also going to show you my own example when I was trying to build up my tolerance for the discomfort of feeling anxiety whenever I was trying to speak. So make sure you pause the video for that, kind of get a clear view of what I was doing personally, kind of also getting an idea of what your activities might look like for building up to a similar goal, for example. But really the purpose of this, and this is actually an actual tool that people use in psychology therapy spaces, because it really helps your nervous system feel safer, but also gradually like push the edges of your comfort zone. So we don't automatically jump way far out of our comfort zone, because that is of course going to make us retreat, right? And so if we can gradually push the edges and get used to that discomfort, right, and not staying in our comfort zone at the same time, then this approach really helps you as a language learner meet yourself where you're at, right? Because with a lot of methods, there are lots of them that don't exactly fit our personalities or our brains or our comfort level of where we are now, as opposed to where we think we want to be in order to gain fluency in our language, which is perfectly fine. And for the latter, right, that I'm talking about, that is why we get to use this ladder in such a helpful way, because it really does help us meet ourselves where we are at, so that we can build up that tolerance of where we want to go in our language. Now, this is exactly the approach that one of my clients, Frances, took. She made it her goal that by the end of the year, she wanted to have around a 30-minute conversation with a teacher on italki completely in German. So we did the same thing with her, and we figured out what milestones, what skills she would need to build, what activities would fall under how she would improve those skills, and then we organized them throughout our ladder for the fear hierarchy. And it was interesting because after she engaged in this process, she was able to reach her goal faster than she thought she would. So we were probably about like 3 months into the year at that point, and so in 9 months, that's what she told herself, right? She wanted to have the conversation with her teacher, but she actually met that goal in 6 months, right? And then she was able to actually, after having witnessed with successful implementation of the fear hierarchy and doing her activities when she needed to, right? She was able to then increase her end goal and kind of refine it so that it challenged her even more. Because after she, of course, talked with her teacher for 30 minutes, her older perception of what caused her anxiety now became her like quote unquote comfort zone. So we needed to figure out how to push her even further towards that success and solidify the fluency that she was building in German. So she actually made it a point to then take it out into the real world and have a conversation with one of her colleagues who was from Austria and make that her new sort of end year goal. So a lot of really good momentum can come from meeting yourself where you're at and then gradually moving upwards in the ladder, instead of just forcing yourself into methods that are not suitable for you and your anxiety right now, right? It doesn't mean that they're never going to be. But besides being able to hold you accountable for actually implementing, because you see the steps leading up to your goal, you also get to naturally track your progress, right? Because you have the milestones there, you have the skills, right, that are built off the activities that you hold yourself accountable for doing, and cross out all of the activities that you're able to accomplish as you work up towards your goal. That feels really satisfying. So you are more motivated to keep on going. When I coach language learners, they sometimes come to me with the perception that we can overcome our barriers that have anything to do with emotional roadblocks or mental roadblocks. And something that I always want to keep in mind, even as I'm helping them through this process, is that we cannot overcome a roadblock, right? A mental roadblock like anxiety. Another example of this, we can't overcome perfection necessarily. There's a lot of talk around how to overcome perfectionism in your language learning. The fact is that a lot of high achievers I have witnessed are really attracted to the language learning experience, right? As I was too, right? I always still have a big part of my identity connected, I would say, to the very academic performance place in my life where I was in school and I was looking for, validation through grades and doing well and having that really form a big part of my identity. And besides just being, a deep-seated personality trait in me that I'm definitely not capable of doing away with, right? Also kept me motivated to keep on going with language learning, made me really stubborn, but also kind of led to my downfall in a sense of really making me burned out and just keep on restarting learning over and over again. And it was because I thought that I could overcome my mental emotional barrier. The fact is, with this fear hierarchy, we aren't aiming to have you overcome anxiety, because the truth is anxiety can come in many different forms. It can hit us at any time, no matter if we are fluent C2 level or we are just starting at an A1 level. You might not hear as much about anxiety faced, at the already fluent level, however you describe fluency or define it for yourself. But there are always little moments that can show up, and it's more about being able to recover faster and more efficiently from any sort of mental or emotional roadblock that you face. So instead of overcoming, again, that's why I really like to use this tool, because you can really work with yourself where you're at, as I said before. And so that we can be more prepared emotionally for when we know anxiety will come up for us again in some kind of form. And that's not something to, again, be necessarily scared about. It is scary when we have to accept, maybe for the first time, that anxiety is just a part of the process and we can't just get rid of it. But that's also what makes us human. And I am so much for advocating for us to be more of ourselves in our language learning, including when we feel anxiety, right? If we're trying to resist ourselves, aka we're trying to resist the anxiety that we might feel, especially when speaking and especially when having to be so vulnerable as adults, and maybe we feel like we're expressing ourselves like toddlers. And that is a very common experience too, but being able to, instead of reframe it that way, change the focus to, I'm showing up with the tools that I have. I'm showing up as a whole person who has all of these ranges of human emotion, and that is okay. And there are tools like the fear hierarchy that I shared with you in this video that are important for, as I mentioned at the beginning, being able to change what you think is a weakness about yourself into what can really help you build strengths in your language learning. And this is just one of the many examples that I work with my clients with when they're really trying to master a language, but on their own terms and not be bound by someone else's rigid expectations or society's expectations as well. Now, if you are interested in making your own fear hierarchy, especially when you are working on speaking, but really if you're just learning a language in general, this is a really good exercise for you. Map it all out with my free download in the pinned comment below. And a gentle reminder to keep on showing up for language learning. It is so totally worth it. It can only be done when you start to work with yourself instead of fighting against yourself. Thank you for watching this video. Let me know in the comments below what resonated with you most, and I'll see you in another video soon.